There is a version of you that nobody has ever met. Not because you hide it, because you don't know how to take someone there. You've tried. You picked the right moment, found almost the right words, watched their face while you said it, and felt it. That quiet drop where you realize they're listening, but they're not arriving. They're at the door, but the door doesn't open from the outside. So you finished the sentence, said something smaller than what you meant, and came back to where you always end up. Alone. Not the kind of alone that looks like an empty room. The kind that looks like a conversation, a dinner table, a phone call that goes fine. The kind of alone where you're standing right in front of someone and you can feel the distance like a physical thing. Like you exist one layer beneath where people can reach. And the terrifying part isn't that nobody has found you. It's that you've stopped believing they can. That somewhere along the way, without deciding to, you moved somewhere nobody has a map to. And now you're not even sure you remember how you got there. You didn't decide this. That's the first thing to understand. Nobody wakes up and thinks, I'm going to stop letting people in. It doesn't happen like that. It happens like this. Someone asks how you are, and you start to answer the real answer. And somewhere in the middle of the first sentence, you see it. That look. Not cruelty, not boredom. Something quieter than that. Just the faint signal that they're already at the limit of where they can follow. So you stop. You translate. You take the real thing, the heavy, specific, complicated, real thing, and you compress it into something they can hold. I've just been tired. It's been a lot lately. I'm fine, just thinking. And they nod, and you move on. And something in you quietly files that away. One more place you don't fully exist. And it happens again. Different person, different moment, same result. So you start doing it faster. The translation becomes automatic. You stop even trying to say the real thing. You go straight to the version that fits. And one day, you realize you can't remember the last time you said something and actually meant all of it. Not because you're dishonest, because you got efficient. You learned exactly how much of yourself fits through the door without making things uncomfortable. And you stayed inside that limit every time. Until the full version of you, the one with the actual thoughts, the specific weight, the real questions, stopped getting offered. Not hidden, just never brought to the surface anymore. Because what's the point of carrying something to the door if you already know it won't fit through? That's when the distance started. Not when someone left, not when someone hurt you. The day you decided, without deciding, that being halfway understood was better than being fully misunderstood. And you were right. It is easier, but easier isn't the same as okay. And somewhere in you, you know the difference. You've always known. Here's what nobody talks about. At some point, the loneliness stopped hurting. And that should have been a relief, but it wasn't. Because pain at least tells you something still matters. When it stops, when you stop reaching, stop hoping someone will ask the right question, stop feeling that drop when they don't. That's not healing. That's adaptation. And there's a difference. Healing means you found something. Adaptation means you stopped needing it. You built a life that runs clean without closeness. You filled the space with work, with goals, with the version of purpose that doesn't require another person to witness it. And it works. That's the part that should scare you. It actually works. You wake up, you move, you build, you sleep, you do it again. And most days, you don't even notice the silence. Most days. But then there's a moment. Not dramatic, not a breakdown. Just something happens. Something small but real. And your first instinct, before you even think, is to tell someone. And then you remember, there's nobody to tell. Not because your phone is empty, because there's nobody who would actually receive it. Nobody who knows enough of the context. Nobody who's been inside enough of the story. So you just hold it by yourself, like you always do. And after a while, you stop having that first instinct. The reach disappears. You stop generating moments that need to be shared. You compress your inner life down to what one person can carry. And that person is always only you. And it becomes normal. That's the word that should stop you. Normal. Because you were not built for this. Nobody is. The need didn't go away because you stopped feeding it. It went underground. And underground things don't disappear. They just grow in the dark, where you can't see them, where you can't name them, where they show up not as loneliness, but as numbness, as restlessness, as that specific emptiness at the end of a day where everything went right and it still felt like nothing. You know that feeling. The day that was productive, the goal that was hit, the work that was done, and still, at the end of it, something's sitting in your chest that doesn't have a name. That's not burnout. That's what happens when you achieve things in a room nobody else is in. Success without witness has a weight to it, a specific kind of hollow. And you've been carrying it so long, you started calling it focus, started calling it independence, started believing that needing nobody was the same as being strong. But strength doesn't feel like this. Strength doesn't feel like talking to yourself at 3 a.m. because there's nobody else who would understand what you're actually trying to build. Strength doesn't feel like editing your thoughts before they leave your mouth, every time, with every person. That's not strength. That's survival. And you've been surviving so long, you forgot it was supposed to feel like more than this. So here's where it gets honest, and I need you to stay with this. Because everything up to now, the translating, the adapting, the survival, that all makes sense. You did what you had to do with what you had. But there's something underneath all of it, something you haven't said out loud yet, not even to yourself. What if someone showed up, someone who actually had the capacity, who could sit inside the complicated thing, who didn't flinch at the weight, who asked the right question and actually waited for the real answer? What would you do? And I don't mean what would you want to do. I mean, what would actually happen inside you in that moment. Because here's what I think. I think you'd freeze. Not because you don't want it, because you've been compressed so long, you don't know what the full version of you sounds like out loud anymore. You've been the translator for so long, the real language feels foreign now, even to you. Think about it. When was the last time you said something and didn't edit it first? When was the last time a thought left your head exactly as it was, uncompressed, unfiltered, unfit for anyone else's comfort, just true? You can't remember. And that's not a small thing, because what it means is that the distance isn't just between you and other people anymore. It's between you and yourself. You've edited so many times, you're not sure anymore what's the original and what's the translation. Which thoughts are yours? Which feelings are real? Which version of you was the one before all of this started? That's the part that sits heaviest. Not the loneliness you feel around people, the loneliness you feel when it's just you, alone with yourself, and still somehow not fully there, like even your own presence isn't enough to fill the room. And you sit with that. At 3 a.m., after a full day, after the work is done, after the goals are hit, in a silence that isn't peaceful, it's just waiting for something you can't name, from someone who doesn't exist yet, in a version of your life that hasn't started. And here's the truth I'm not going to soften. That version of your life doesn't start out there. It starts with one moment where you let something leave your mouth exactly as it is. No compression, no translation, no fitting it through the door, just the real thing to anyone, even yourself. Because you can't be found if you keep making yourself smaller than your address. The version of you that someone could actually reach is the one you stop showing up as. Not because it's gone, because it got inconvenient, and you chose efficiency over existence every single day, without noticing, until existing fully started to feel like too much to ask, even from yourself, even when you're alone, even now.